Okay, so here we are in Virginia. I'm originally from Iowa. I just drove the car about 1,200 miles in 18 hours. But anyway, I wanted to do a review of an electric fuel pump from Summit, which is basically the equivalent of a Holley blue pump. It runs at 14 psi and it's supposed to be 140 gallon per hour. Well, I guess that'd be the black pump. But anyway, the 14 psi thing is the same. And I didn't have to change it, but I decided I wanted to, this is the parts mule car where we just try stuff. So I slapped on there. The mechanical pump was doing fine. It gets a little bit of vapor lock, because it's a mechanical pump and it's run off the engine, so it gets hot. So I thought, oh, I might as well try an electric fuel pump. And honestly, it went great for most of the trip until I got caught in traffic and it was sitting there and deadheading. Now, here's my beef with these fuel pumps. Now, they sit there and say that, you can read through them and they'll tell you that, you can deadhead these pumps. They're made to do that. They have a pressure relief valve. And, maybe that works for, the Holley red pump that only runs at 6 or 7 psi, but these 14 psi pumps get really hot. You can't even really touch them after you've been idling for a long time. They're so darn hot. And again, this is a deadhead system, where there's not a return line. And I'd have to recommend against that because what ended up happening is, first of all, my pump would get really hot when I was sitting there. And we'll get a look down here of where it is. It's mounted below my gas tank. My gas tank is a fuel cell in my trunk, so you can see the rotary vane part, which is the only part that needs to be behind the gas tank, because that's where the fuel, or lower than the gas tank, because that's where the fuel flows. But anyway, it just after it sit there in traffic, and I could hear the thing start winding up. Now they are loud, but I mean they're totally tolerable. But when they're really loud is when you have problems. And I have an AFR gauge in my car, and what would happen is it would just start, I could hear it really revving up, and it must have been vaporizing the fuel that was right in the pump there, because what would happen is I think that the fuel would vaporize and that pump would just be freewheeling and nothing, and then it would get real hot or whatever, I'm not sure, but it would get real noisy and start vibrating back there like it just didn't have fuel. Now I'd imagine with a return line that bleeds off the pressure, it wouldn't get so hot, and it would, I ended up with a 14 or 15 amp fuse, I think, with 14 gauge wire running off the thing, and that's quite a bit of power draw. It would blow a 10 amp fuse, so that's drawing a lot of power when it gets under a load. So I mean, again, it worked really good, but I'd really recommend having a return line. That caused a lot of problems. Here's just another shot under the car of the pump mounting. You can see how the important part here is, under where the gas tank is. And so that's good. So we're getting fuel gravity fed to it. And then we have here our externally accessible bypass valve, or whatever that's good for, I'm not sure. But anyway, you can see here that if we look really close even, this pump got so hot, I'm not sure what happened to it, but this body is moving on the motor. It is not twisting on this mount. This base plate is moving around on this cylinder. So as you can see there. So that's pretty wild. And that was after some DC traffic, but anyway. Now, if you do have one, you're driving on the road like me, and I didn't change this till today when I got here. We'll open the hood. But what I ended up doing, because I was lazy, and I'm going to get another pump and I'm going to put in a return line here, but you see I have a mechanical pump on here now. Now, originally when I was running the electric fuel pump, I didn't have this, but now I leave the electric fuel pump. I have an auxiliary switch to it, and I have it switched off, and I'm just running this Holley mechanical pump, and it's pulling fuel right through the electric pump just fine. I haven't had a single issue with that. So if you are driving with one of these electric pumps and you have a spot on your timing cover for a mechanical pump, and you have the offset deal on the cam, that thing that you bolt onto these Fords, well, I think it's even just a cam lobe on these, but anyway, regardless, you know, you can put a mechanical pump on there and you'll be just fine. So, because, you know, I'm 1,200 miles away from home and this is all I got, so I brought a few extra parts, but obviously, you know, I can run that mechanical pump fine that pulls fuel through those electric pumps. But anyway, the moral to this story is that if you're going to run an electric pump, you know, and I can't say anything about the red pumps that run at lower PSI, because I'm sure they're not going to heat up quite as bad as these 14 PSI pumps deadheading. But you definitely want to have a return line with these pumps. I think they're great pumps that worked really good, but it just burned up in DC traffic getting down here. So you know, and I was told you can deadhead them, and that's just really not the case. So anyway, there you go, electric fuel pump review.